At the time, she seemed like just another random encounter. I had no idea it would end with me standing in front of a hotel safe, wondering where my money had gone.
Every city has a story, every journey leaves a mark. Welcome to Night Wolf Travels, we guide you through the dark.
Final day in Thailand had arrived. It felt strange saying that. After weeks of traveling, nights out, beaches, ferries, flights, good decisions, and questionable ones, somehow I would reach the end of the adventure. I checked out of Vutale 6 and made my way back to Bangkok. For leaving, I made one final decision. I left my Super Soaker water gun behind for the hotel cleaner. At the time, I did not think I would need it in Bangkok. After all, I was heading back to Bangkok, and with it being a major city, I did not think it would be a thing. How wrong I was. The closer we got to Nana, the more obvious it became that Bangkok was fully embracing Songkran. People lined the streets, armed with pump-action water guns, buckets, hoses, anything capable of launching water at another human being. As our taxi entered Soi 4, we came under immediate attack. Water was flying from every direction. Children, adults, tourists, locals, nobody was safe. The funny thing was that my taxi driver seemed to be enjoying it as much as everyone else. She was laughing the whole way down the street. At one point, she jokingly suggested dropping me off in the middle of the action, rather than taking me to the hotel. I immediately began negotiating for my survival. She laughed. I laughed. The water cannons continued firing. Thankfully, the Nana Hotel soon came into view. As we pulled into the hotel entrance, the taxi was baptized with bouquets of water. The Nana Hotel was my base for the final night, directly opposite Nana Plaza. If you would like a closer look at the hotel, I have already done a full review on the channel, link above. After checking in and unpacking a few essentials, I headed down to the hotel restaurant, one final free drink before heading back into the madness. I ordered a cappuccino and found a seat overlooking the street. From there, I had a front row view of Songkran chaos unfolding outside, people getting soaked, water battles breaking out. Tourists discovering that trying to stay dry was a pointless exercise, the usual. As I sat there, a street vendor approached, carrying a selection of water pistols. Now, after witnessing what was happening outside, it was obvious I needed to arm myself. The only question was price. 100 baht. I shook my head. No. A brief negotiation followed. The kind of negotiation Thailand specializes in. Eventually, we settled on 50 baht. Deal done. It was not exactly military-grade equipment. Compared to the Super Soaker I would left in Pattaya, this thing looked more like a child's toy, but it was better than nothing, and more importantly, it made me feel prepared. I headed back onto the streets, back to the carnage. I worked my way down Soi 4 towards the small alley connecting it with Soi 8. For a brief moment, I found shelter from the water. A rare luxury during Songkran. That short-lived peace was interrupted when I bumped into the girls from Lolitas. One of the ladies offered me a BJ. Naturally, I asked the important question. How much? 800 baht. I had a quick look around. To be honest, there was only one lady working, a hand at his poor-looking skin, and thought better of it. My gut told me pass, so I declined and kept moving. The moment I stepped onto Soi 8, the temporary ceasefire ended. I was immediately ambushed. Water flying from every direction. Buckets being launched without warning. Tourists attacking tourists. Locals attacking everyone. Absolute carnage. Fighting back with my tiny water pistol felt more like a token gesture. Bit like bringing a knife to a gunfight, but I gave them my best effort. Eventually I escaped onto Sukhumvit Road in search of food. I headed into Bangkok Burger, a great little spot where you can grab something to eat, sit outside, and if you are that way inclined, enjoy a bit of greenery afterwards as well. By this point I was hungry, wet, slightly tired, and had a great time. I ordered some food, found a seat, and watched the world go by. One final afternoon in Thailand, one final chance to soak it all in, quite literally. After eating, I enjoyed a smoke, and slowly wandered back towards Nana, stopping off at a few bars along the way. Nothing particularly wild, just a few beers, a bit of people watching, and more Songkran madness unfolding around me. One point I found myself standing outside a bar with a cold beer in hand. Me and a few other drinkers had formed an unofficial firing squad. Every unsuspecting pedestrian who walked past became a potential target. Water pistols were deployed, retaliation was immediate, and most people seemed to be enjoying the festivities, but not everyone. I do notice some long faces amongst some of the Songkran casualties. It was obvious to me that this was not every Thai's cup of tea. As the afternoon drifted into evening, I eventually headed back to the hotel. Shower, a change of clothes, and one final night in Bangkok still ahead of me. At the time, I thought I knew exactly how that night was going to end. I could not have been more wrong. After a shower and a change of clothes, I sat outside the Nana Hotel with a cold Heineken in hand. Across the road sat Nana Plaza, my destination for the evening, my final proper night in Thailand. There was just one problem, getting there. Earlier in the day, crossing the road felt like trying to navigate a battlefield. Water guns, buckets, ambushes. Songkran had transformed Nana into a war zone, and I had absolutely no desire to spend the evening sitting in wet clothes. Again. So I sat there for a while studying the situation, like a military commander planning an operation, or at least that's what I told myself. In reality, I was drinking beer and delaying the inevitable. One beer became two became three. With each drink, my confidence grew. My tactical planning became increasingly sophisticated. Eventually, I decided to use time. The mission had begun. The objective was simple: leave the hotel, cross the road, reach Nana Plaza, remain dry. The first stage went surprisingly well. I slipped out of the hotel grounds and immediately identified a few potential threats. We were bombed with super soakers, a couple of tourists carrying buckets, several children who looked far too enthusiastic for my liking. I altered course accordingly. Slowly I worked my way forward, using shadows, parked vehicles, groups of pedestrians, anything that offered cover. At one point I genuinely found myself hiding behind a parked motorbike. A grown man conducting what can only be described as anti-water tactical maneuvers. The ridiculous thing was that it actually seemed to be working. I was getting closer. Still dry, still undetected. A few near misses kept the tension high. One group spotted me and started raising their water guns. I immediately changed direction. Another narrowly missed me with a bucket. A shot from somewhere behind clicked the pavement inches away. Not damp, dry. Small victory perhaps, but after the afternoon I would had, it felt like a significant achievement. Feeling rather pleased with myself, I ordered a celebratory beer and found a seat on the ground floor. Around me, Nana Plaza was doing exactly what Nana Plaza has done for decades. Music, neon lights, ladies calling out to passing customers, tourists trying to decide where to spend their money, the usual organized chaos. One thing I wanted to before leaving Thailand was visit a couple of the better go-go bars. Not necessarily to take anyone home, at least that was not the primary objective. I was mostly there to enjoy the atmosphere and finish the trip properly. The problem was deciding where to go. There were plenty of options inside Nana Plaza, some better than others, some considerably more expensive than others, and after several weeks in Thailand, my budget was beginning to look slightly worse for wear, so I did what any sensible traveler would do. I asked one of the service staff for recommendations, which bars were worth visiting, which ones were not, where should I spend my final evening. She pointed me towards a couple of the most popular ones, and seeing as she worked there, I figured she probably knew better than I did, so off I went. The next few hours passed much as you would expect. A few drinks, a few conversations, a lot of people watching, and some very impressive views. Let us leave it at that. The funny thing was that despite it being my final night, I was not really feeling any pressure to make something happen. In fact, quite the opposite. I was surprisingly relaxed. The trip had already been a success. I would done the full moon party, explored Koh Samui, survived Songkran, made memories, made mistakes, and somehow made it this far. Besides, I already had a plan. Hidden safely inside my hotel safe was my remaining emergency fund, 3,000 baht, 1,000 set aside for the airport and taxi, 2,000 reserved for a final lady if the opportunity presented itself. A perfectly reasonable strategy. At least it seemed reasonable at the time. Eventually, I wandered back out onto the street. The crowds had thinned considerably. Most of the Songkran madness had faded away. Occasional water guns still appeared, but nothing like the chaos from earlier. Bangkok was finally beginning to calm down. Standing there beneath the neon lights, I remember thinking one thing: one last smoke, then I would see where the night took me. It seemed like a harmless decision, a simple way to end the trip. What I did not realize was that the next person I spoke to would become the biggest mystery of the entire adventure. Standing on Sukhumvit Road, I bought a pre-rolled smoke from one of the nearby shops. My final night in Thailand was winding down. The Songkran crowds had mostly disappeared. The bars were quieter. The madness of the afternoon felt like a distant memory. I remember thinking one thing: one last smoke, then maybe see if the night had one final surprise left in it. Though I looked around for somewhere to sit, an African lady approached me. She was friendly, easy to talk to. Nothing about the situation immediately felt unusual. She suggested we grab a beer from one of the street vendors and sit down somewhere nearby, which seemed perfectly reasonable. So that's what we did. We sat together, had a beer, shared the smoke, chatted. Nothing remarkable, nothing dramatic, nothing that felt out of place. At least not at the time. And that is where the story becomes difficult. Because from this point onwards, I honestly do not know what happened. There are no memories, no flashes, no fragments, nothing. The next thing I remember is opening my eyes back in my hotel room, alone. First, I was confused. Then I looked at the clock. 10 a.m. My flight was not at 10 a.m. My taxi was not booked for 10 a.m. I was supposed to be gone hours ago. Suddenly, I was fully awake. I grabbed my phone. Several missed calls. Messages from the taxi driver. The realization hit instantly. I would miss my airport transfer. My first reaction was panic. I immediately messaged the driver and asked if there was any chance he could come back. Thankfully, he agreed, which, looking back, was probably the first bit of good luck I would had all morning. I started throwing my belongings together as quickly as possible. Both of my phones were still in the room. My luggage was still there. Nothing immediately looked wrong. Then I remembered something. The money. Before going out the previous evening, I would left 3,000 baht inside the room safe. 1,000 for the airport and travel expenses. 2,000 set aside for a lady. It was not a fortune, but it was all the cash I had left. Walked over to the safe and entered my code. Error. I tried again. Same result. Now I knew the code was correct. A member of staff came up and opened the safe. That is when my stomach sank. The safe was empty. Completely empty. Money had gone. All of it. There was not time to investigate. There was not time to ask questions. There was not time to figure out what had happened. My taxi was waiting. My flight was rapidly becoming a possibility rather than a certainty. And suddenly getting home became the only thing that mattered. I grabbed everything I owned, checked out, and headed downstairs. One thing I do remember is getting a few strange looks from some of the staff. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe they knew exactly what had happened. Maybe they knew no more than I did. To this day, I honestly do not know. What I did know was that I needed to get moving. Fast. The taxi driver was waiting outside. I jumped in, and we headed towards the airport. The irony was that I now had no cash. None. The 3,000 baht I would left in the safe had vanished. So the first thing I had to do after arriving at the airport was find an ATM just to pay for the taxi. Not exactly how I would imagined ending the trip. Everything after that became a blur of rushing. ATM, check-in, security, finding the gate, constantly checking the time. Yet somehow, against all odds, I made it. I boarded the plane, breathless, exhausted, and still trying to process what had happened. At the same time, I felt triumphant, as against all odds, I had made it. During their flight home, I kept replaying a previous evening in my head. The beer, the smoke, the conversation, the missing hours, the empty safe, the missed taxi, the missing money. The truth is, I still do not know exactly what happened that night. I was not there consciously enough to know, and I do not have any memory to make claims of what exactly happened. Only suspicions. All I can do is tell you the facts. I remember sitting with the lady. I remember having a beer. I remember smoking. Then I remember waking up the next morning in my hotel room fully clothed. My money was gone. My taxi was gone. And several hours of my life completely disappeared. Maybe there is an explanation. Maybe there is not. Perhaps some of you watching have your own theories. I would genuinely be interested to hear them, because even now, sitting here telling the story, there are parts of that final night I still cannot explain. What I can say is this: despite everything, the missed flight scare, the empty safe, the confusion, the frustration, still made it home. Thailand gave me beaches, parties, amazing nights, questionable decisions, unexpected friendships, a few expensive lessons, and one final mystery that remains unsolved to this day. As the plane lifted off from Bangkok and Thailand disappeared beneath the clouds, I found myself smiling. Not because everything had gone perfectly, quite the opposite. The best travel stories rarely do, and somehow, an empty safe, a missed taxi, and a missing night turned out to be the perfect ending to a very Thailand trip. Thanks for following the journey. And if you have enjoyed traveling along with me, do not forget to like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments, especially if you have a theory about the missing night. Until the next adventure.
Every city has a story, every journey leaves a mark. Welcome to Night Wolf Travels, we guide you through the dark.
The journey never ends.